Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name's Callum, and I'm joining you from Expo North. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's session, Unlocking Innovation in Creative and Cultural Sectors, where we'll be joined by Alex from Expo North, who will be introducing today's panel. Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Callum. Thanks so much, and thanks everyone for tuning in. As Callum says, the sessions are going to be around innovation in the creative and cultural sectors, and really pleased to be joined by Fiona Payton from HIE, who I'll let introduce herself in a moment, and Karine and Joanne from TrueNorth. And the idea with today's session really is, we've noticed, particularly across the pandemic, that our relationship with the innovation team within HIE, I think, has increased a lot. And I think, innovation has always been incredibly important in our sectors. And I think one thing is, I think the pandemic really has just accelerated this. And we thought it would be useful to bring the innovation team in from HIE, just to overview the type of support that's available, how you engage with it. And also Karine and Joanne from TrueNorth to drill down into some of the more basic mechanics of innovation. And as Callum said in his introduction piece there, we really want to try and make this as interactive as we can. So please do pop any questions or comments or concerns in the chat as we move through the conversation, and hopefully we can make it as interactive as we possibly can. But just before I hand over to Karine and Joanne to give a really short presentation about the work they do in the innovation space, I wonder if I can bring you in, Fiona, just to quickly introduce yourself and maybe talk just very briefly about the type of support that's available through HIE. Sorry, yeah, great, Fiona.
See, I'm Fiona Payton and I'm on mute. Yes, Fiona Payton, I'm part of the innovation team at HIE. We're organised on a sort of sectoral basis, and I'm the innovation manager for creative industries, tourism, and oddly enough, all things mountain biking as well. So my role within HIE really is, I'm a sort of link between other services such as the Innovate Your Business service, which Karine and Joanne will tell you all about. And other sources of support like Interface, Innovate UK, and things like that. So I help to kind of guide people to the right type of support. I also manage the process of small innovation grant applications as well. So I'm able to give quite a lot of feedback to people who are maybe thinking about applying for funding, but not sure if they meet the criteria and everything. I can kind of help with that. I can help with people who are applying for external funding that's out with Highlands and Islands Enterprise. I can sort of run my eye over people's applications and give some feedback in the hope that that will increase their chances of getting supported. So quite a varied role. Also a little bit of help with intellectual property matters as well, which I know is quite important in the creative industry sector. I can give some advice myself. I can signpost to the intellectual property office. And I also have access to some specialist advisors who can give advice on specific, more technical, complicated issues. And in some cases, I can guide businesses towards an intellectual property audit as well, if that's the right thing for their business. So that kind of is in a nutshell the types of things that I do. So it's very, very varied. But we work on quite an informal basis, so I'm always happy to talk to any businesses. If you're account managed by HIE, you would normally chat to your account manager first, but I talk all the time to account managers and they refer people on to me if they've got specific innovation projects. And innovation to me can be many things. It's not all about science and test tubes and technology and things like that. It can be kind of quite simple, just doing something differently. I mean, Karin will tell you all about that in her presentation, but it has to have something, some kind of a novelty to it, but it's not rocket science that we're talking about. So anyway, I'll hand you back to Alex.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Fiona. And we'll come back on a lot of those points. I think it's really important the type of relationship a business can have with HIE around innovation. And I think we'll try and cover that a bit more. But I'm just going to quickly pass everyone across to Joanne and Karine. They're going to do a very short presentation, and then we're going to open up the floor. So Karine, Joanne, would you mind just giving a quick introduction to TrueNorth's part in the innovation process? And then we'll move through your presentation, if that's okay.
No problem. Thanks very much, Alex. So Jo and I have worked together for many years, and our colleague Rowan, who's in the south of France, actually, she moves there. So the joys of technology, we can provide support right across Highlands and Islands from all over. So I'm down in Glasgow. Jo can speak for herself, but she's just recently moved from Edinburgh. So we are passionate innovation enablers. We love working with businesses, all shapes and sizes, from startup businesses to established businesses in any sector. And it's not a big presentation, but just a few slides, just to again do some scene setting, because we really wanted this to be a discussion this afternoon. So that's our passion, and we deliver the Innovate Your Business programme on behalf, you can get the words out, of Highlands and Islands Enterprise. So Joanne and Rowan and I work really closely with Fiona and the rest of the innovation team. And the support can, again, be all sorts of things, from just having a chat to, as Fiona talked about, having a full, potentially looking at funding for the innovation grant. But it's wide and varied. So we absolutely love what we do. Jo, would you like to add in?
Yeah, I'll say a quick hello as well. Karine's covered it really well, but the three of us are innovation specialists. So we've spent many years looking at innovation tools and techniques, and we've done all the boring theory behind it, but actually our passion is helping businesses grow. It's been a heck of a year. We've really appreciated the struggles that companies have had over the past 12 months. But through the innovation programme, it's been really exciting to see how people are iterating, how they're developing their product and their offering to come through this and offer, services that will meet the needs of the future. So we'll touch on that a little today. And just personally, my background is working across a range of sectors. I spent some time in textiles, some time in consumer goods, namely soup with Baxter's. And latterly I was in tourism and then life science. So a wide and varied career, but have a strong appreciation of the creative sector and the value it brings to the economy, and also the actual sort of sustainability, thinking of cultural and cultural sustainability and heritage as part of the offering in the sector. And I'll pass over to Karin if you're happy to pop the slides up. We'll just take you through, we'll take you through a few points around what we do, and questions are welcome. And while we wait, what I'd suggest, if you don't mind popping in the chat who we've got in, so if you can just introduce your name and your organisation, your company, or if you're at startup phase, just a little overview of what sort of area, what area you're in. That would be great to see who we've got here.
Great idea, Jo, because we obviously know who each other is, but we don't know who you are. So that's great, and it just means we can get the conversation going as well. So thanks a lot. So this isn't a big death by PowerPoint exercise. So it's just trying to plant some seeds about what innovation is, and there's a lot of myths and a lot of challenges with the perception about innovation. And Fiona had mentioned in her bit that very often people think, well, it's about science and technology and inventing new world-changing things, or or it's a bunch of consultants like Joe and I turning up and telling you what to do. And that's just not what it's all about. I mean, some of these things are innovation, but it's so much more than that. And the other thing, particularly in the last year, we've noticed there's obviously been a big drive to digital, going online with things, and how do we reach our customers, which is a very valid point. But it doesn't have to be about digital. Digital is really important as a mechanism for communicating, and particularly in the creative space, you're actually creating digital imagery and using technology, but it's a means to an end, not the end itself. And I think one of the things that we have seen quite a lot from companies over the last year is there's been funding, for digital stuff, the various grants and things like that, and people going, oh, I've got to do something digital, and using that as the driver, as opposed to taking that step back and think, well, what is it I should be doing? What's the best way to be engaging with my customers and providing value to them? So I was really conscious that to include digital is part of it, but it's not the be all and end all. And one of the big issues is when the iword is used, it's a real turn off. And we're innovation enablers. That's what Jo and I call ourselves. Fiona's the innovation manager for High. But the reality is just so many people don't recognise that word as being applicable to them. But there's then another point is when you do go looking for funding, that is one of the eyes that people are looking for, so we need to be, head counts, we need to be internationalizing, and we need to be innovative. So if it's not technology and it's not science and it's not a bunch of consultants, what actually is it? So don't know, Jo, if you're wanting to kick in with these bits in here just now. Oh, of course, absolutely. I just realised I need to do this.
Yeah, if you don't mind, you can be my very capable Carol Vorderman here. But yeah, innovation, a big part of that's the creativity process. And we often find with other sectors, we spend a lot of time helping them to come up with ideas. But the creative industry, as you would imagine, is a bit of an exception. You tend to, as a group, have a lot more ideas, but often aren't sure which to pursue. But creativity is the sort of this act of bringing these new ideas to life, and coming up with unique or novel ways of doing things or products. As Fiona said in her intro, that uniqueness or novelty is a core part of innovation, having something new that's not necessarily been done before. But what we would say is that creativity is part of the process. So having those ideas is brilliant. It's a really important part at the front end of the process. But beyond that, there is the invention. And innovation is about bringing it through the full cycle. So from idea to reality. Innovation is a process beyond that, where you translate an idea or an invention into something that people can see, feel, use, a real tangible product or service. And Karine, I don't know if you've got anything to add on that front.
Yeah, and I think this bit is where it's so interesting in terms of innovation in the creative sector as well, because as Jo was saying, that there's no shortage of ideas, and I know when Alex and Jo and I have been working with quite a few businesses with Expo North, and people have all of these ideas about things that they could do, and the creative space is maybe very different in many ways, in the fact that the actual process of the creation is so important to you, and just making stuff, whatever that is so important. But the important word in the innovation bit is making money. So it's the bit that converts that into something that people will pay for. And that's the bit that can sometimes be more challenging. And as Jo said earlier on, a lot of the businesses in other sectors, it can be quite a challenge trying to get them to think differently, because they're a bit more left-brained very often. So sort of tapping into that sort of logical side of things. And that actually innovation is about how do we turn that into something that people will pay for? And that's the important bit in there. So just thinking about sort of types of innovations, well, actually I like this quote, which I think actually that I think was Philip Kotler that actually said this, who's one of the sort of grandfathers or founders of marketing, modern marketing. So there's three kinds of companies: those that make things happen, those who watch others make these things happen, and those that are looking over their shoulder going, what on earth happened? You know, the things have just, the competition's bypassed them, the world has changed, and they're left wondering. And that's the other bit about innovation, that it's actually this process that is what keeps you relevant, what keeps you fresh. It's coming up with things that are relevant to people at a point in time. And that's absolutely vital, because if you don't do that, you'll get left behind. So just wanted to get, again, in terms of the types of things that people tend to think of, the most popular notion about innovation is around the product or service, and that is a very important part of the definition is around product or services. So coming up with new things, but actually improving things that are already there. So, you know, new flavors, new versions, or, you know, popping up like you're sitting there with my latest version of my phone, and, you know, 6 months time there'll be a new version out with other features on it. So that's innovation. It might not be disruptive, it might not be changing the world, it's more sort of iterative, but it's out there. And these things are happening to us all the time, about how we, so things that come along that just make our life better. You know, LED light bulbs. Now, one of the problems I've got there is, how do you get rid of your LED light bulbs? I still haven't discovered where you recycle them. So we could maybe have a little session with something, Zero Waste Scotland, to have a look at that. But just new ways of delivering your product or service out there. So that's an important part of it. But one that often people don't appreciate is actually the processes that are involved. So that could be the creative processes that were in there, or manufacturing processes, but thinking about how we actually deliver what we do. So, you know, one of the often cited innovations was the top left image here was Henry Ford's moving assembly line. That was a huge innovation. So although the car in itself was innovative, it was actually his production line that cut the manufacturing time from like a day to a matter of hours in that process. And we're very used to a lot of things that we take for granted now, you know, being able to, again, use our smartphones for paying. I mean, that's just been fantastic, particularly through the pandemic. You know, we don't need to just rely on chip and pin, you know, we can have e-tickets, chatbots communicating with people instead of face-to-face, you know, utilising technology. But these things, although some of these examples are about technology, it's actually the process that's getting innovated of how you actually do what you do. So again, huge opportunities, and probably in the creative sector and the heritage cultural sectors to look at doing things differently. And the final one is around business model and innovation. This is actually just thinking about the ways that we make money. So and how we deliver. It's not just about the making money, that's the result, but it's thinking about how do we genuinely create value. And I think, Jo, as you said earlier, you know, the pandemic has forced us to have to look differently about our situations just now. And, you know, we've seen some amazing stuff going on. Obviously, lots of people taking stuff online. But certainly some of the work that we've been doing with businesses in the creative and the heritage sector have been actually taking a step back and really having a good hard look at the business to think, well, what are we doing? Because the other problem with small businesses, very often we're just busy. We're so busy doing what we're doing, and we don't have time to take that step back and question things. So I think that's the sort of main things that we wanted to get along. But in terms of next steps, Jo, do you want to sort of just talk through?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So we kind of said at the beginning, for the creative sector, it doesn't tend to be a lack of ideas that's the problem. When we speak to people from the creative industries, there's loads of ideas, but sometimes the problem's actually understanding which ones to pursue. There's a world of opportunity, and as Karine said, quite often scant resources. You're trying to keep things going as you're looking at coming up with new ideas and implementing them. But just to give you a feel for the sort of way we work, and at TrueNorth and through the Innovate Your Business, we try and help in businesses or entrepreneurs, people sort of working on new ideas, come up with things that meet customer needs. It sounds so simple, but quite often it's missed. Quite often we have a great idea and rush on ahead and don't spend enough time immersing ourselves in the needs of the customer, understanding what's important to them. So if you do kind of sign up to come and work with us, we'll always start, the first question we'll ask you is always about who's your customer. And there's some businessy language, forgive me, there's some stuff in here. We talk about customer pains a lot, and that comes from a sort of model that's used for innovation. I used to think it was incredibly dramatic, speaking about customer pains, but over the years I've come to appreciate that that's exactly what it is. When we can tap into what causes discomfort or what needs a customer has in their life that are unfulfilled by other products and services, that's where we can start to create value. And also thinking about gains. So in the products and services that you're making, are there benefits that are maybe unintended or extra to what we'd initially intended? So we start to think about how you can create that value in the customers' lives. So fundamentally, it comes down to how can we make people's lives better? How can we improve their quality of life through developing product services or iterating on your business model or processes and creating things that solve problems. So really trying to help you to get to pick the ideas that meet customer needs best, because they'll be valued most and people will most willingly put their hands in their pockets to pay for those sort of solutions. And this is something that's talked a lot about. This is old school marketing, like back in the 80s, I think. A chap called Ted Levitt, Theodore, but I know him quite well over the years, so I'll go for Ted. And he talks about this concept that people don't want to buy a 1/4 inch drill, they want a 1/4 inch hole. So quite often when we come to innovate, we think about what's gone before and we try to do something shinier, smarter, faster. So, people think, I'll build a drill with a light or a faster drill or a drill with a better battery. But actually, if you take a step back and spend a bit of time thinking about what does the customer need here, do they really want a drill? If you could give them a laser pointer that cut a hole in their wall, absolutely. So it's actually part of the sort of principle we use is really understanding the customer, really understanding the jobs that the customer wants to be fulfilled or done through the products or services. And that opens up a bit of space for new ideas and fresh thinking as well. So it's just one of the key principles that we use when working with companies.
And I'm just thinking, I'm going to interrupt there just with my pencil, because I've started using pencils again a lot, and this has actually come about. I was running a webinar that we did a few months ago looking at sustainability and how to introduce sustainable practices into your business and how actually it could generate additional revenue streams for you. And one of the things was about moving from pens to pencils, but it's just when Joe was talking about the drill and the holes, it reminded me of the old story again back in the day when the astronauts were going to the moon, and America spent, you know, thousands and tens of thousands, probably millions of pounds trying to come up with a new writing implement, and the Russians stuck with pencils, because then you didn't have to worry about ink flowing when you didn't have any gravity. So it is about thinking about the problem. You know, what is it somebody's actually wanting to do? And I think the work that we've done in the last few months, the feedback that we've got from people in the cultural and heritage space and the creative industries has been very much, oh, I'd not thought about that. They'd come with, oh, I've got this amazing idea. And then when we actually get into the discussions, that things have changed and evolved and maybe gone off in a different direction. So it wasn't that the initial idea wasn't good. It was, you know, really interesting, but actually it wasn't solving a problem that was important enough, or that there was a big enough opportunity for the people to exploit. So just sort of summing that, you know, like I said, it's not to be death by PowerPoint. It was, you know, the key things to think about is that when you come and hopefully from this, you know, you'll get involved and you'll come to the Innovate Your Business programme. I can see how we can support you. But if there's things to leave you with today, and we're looking forward to running some more webinars around innovation about where do you go next. But the important things to leave with you, you know, start with the customer, find pains and problems, but only those ones that are really worth solving, because sometimes actually when you go out, this is another issue we find out quite often, when you go out and you think, oh, this is a huge problem, and you go and talk to the customer and they I don't really have a problem, I solve it this way at the moment, it's all right, might not be ideal, but it's okay. So it's not worth solving those problems. And just reminding yourself they're buying holes, not drills, or they're buying an implement to write with in zero gravity. And the last bit, which we'll talk about more in the future, is about testing assumptions, because too often we assume, and as it says, you know, the old saying goes, that makes an ass out of you and me. So not a good place to go. So we'll sort of stop there. And back to you, Alex, and we'll get a bit of discussion going.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Corinne, Joanne. That's most helpful. I'll just maybe start opening up with some that's touching in a bit more detail on some of the things that were brought up there. I think, Fiona, I'd like to bring you in. I mean, so could you maybe elaborate slightly more on the mechanics of the innovation support that HIE produce? I know we've probably never had a stronger relationship, particularly across the pandemic, and as we all look for new ways of working and introducing innovation into our business models. And one of the things that our network find particularly helpful about HIE support is it can start off very conversational, as Corinne and Joanne alluded to there as well. And I think, you know, our businesses certainly find that that really helpful in terms of articulation of the innovation. But coming back into the mechanics, particularly, I guess, because everyone at some point is going to start asking about the funding of this. And I think the important thing to stress here with the type of support we're talking about this afternoon is there's so much more than that. I mean, so what type of things are HIE looking for? What does that conversation look like? And you know, I mean, Corinne and Joanne touched upon things like proving of the model and R&D. I mean, does that fit into the innovation program, Fiona? And how does that relationship start once we make those connections?
Yeah. I think perhaps what we should say first of all is perhaps I didn't explain Innovate Your Business properly to people. Innovate Your Business is a free program, free to businesses across the Highlands and Islands. It's really easily accessed through the HIE website. It's an online inquiry form, and businesses can get up to 2 days of one-to-one support from Joanne, Karin, and their colleague Rowan to sort of help them scope out their innovation project. So you've really got nothing to lose by you know, if you have an idea, by getting in touch and sort of running it past people, because you know, you can get signposted elsewhere. There are lots of other sort of sources of support. So if it's not an innovation project, then you know, we can find somewhere else that should be able to give you some kind of support. But yes, as Karin said, it's not just about the product innovation or the process innovation. It's about the sort of business model and the whole sort of service innovation as well. So basically, if you're doing anything different, we're happy to talk to you about it. The route that you take will vary very much depending on the project, but you know, we can do something for everybody. Basically, is a message that I'm trying to get across to you.
I'd just like to add in there, just on what Fiona had said. I mean, we've had examples where you know, somebody's come in, we've had maybe a bit of a conversation, even maybe just for an hour, and it sparked off some things. They've gone away and maybe done some more work on their own, or gone off and done some additional research, maybe then come back in, you know, months later, weeks or months later. In fact, we've got a couple of ones that have just come back that I'd first talked to 2 years ago, where they'd decided to go and look at other things. So again, it doesn't have to be you in one chunk. You can come back and revisit as well.
Thanks so much, Corinne. I mean, just to maybe explore that slightly more. So, because I know that we've worked together on lots of innovation proposals, and like you said, there, some of them are, you know, there's quite a lot of dialogue around the articulation of the innovation, or around breaking that down. I mean, what does that relationship look like once, if somebody makes an approach to HIE and HIE pass them across to you guys for further conversation? What happens then, Corinne? Just if anyone's on here thinking, I have an innovation, I'm not quite sure what it is, or like you mentioned there, I have maybe too many ideas that I might view as innovation that are kind of pivots to my model. I mean, what does that conversation look like? How do you guys work with businesses to help tease out and get to the core of what the innovation proposal actually is?
It's a really good question, and the honest truth is there's not one size fits all, there's not one approach. It really does depend on the individual person that gets in touch and what they're trying to do, Alex. But the first thing is just taking that time to understand, you know, where they are at the moment. What are they trying to achieve? What are their goals? And then to sort of peel that back to have a look at, well, what does that actually, what does it mean? And Joe was talking earlier, you know, we've got various tools and processes and approaches that we use. So we'll draw on those different things to help people move forward. So it really, it's fun as well, actually. I think that's the other thing in this. And I think that's a word we've had for quite a lot of people. It's actually been good fun. It can be quite challenging as well, because our role isn't to just go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Our role is to challenge, but to challenge for understanding. So to hold a mirror up, almost as saying that, well, you've said this. We'll question, can you clarify why is that important? And I know certainly I was talking, to remember one of the conversations I had with a couple who are working in the sort of heritage digital space a few months ago, who had come in with a very strong, well-articulated proposal. And as I started to ask questions, I could just see them, oh, I hadn't thought about that. So initially they were, oh my goodness, you know, you've just blown holes in what we were going to do. But what they've now got is so much stronger because they've taken that time. And that's, I suppose, the other bit of this. It does take a bit of time to get that clarity. But people that take time to do that planning and truly understand the customer are far more likely to be successful at what they do. And there's been a lot of research done on this as well. That is a key part of the commercial process as well. In fact, I don't know, maybe Joe, maybe do you want to?
Again, you've covered it really well, but a lot of the work we're doing is collaboratively sort of working with people to look at their business model that they're proposing, or perhaps look at the market and assumptions they have around new products or services. So if you do sort of sign up and engage, and I see some names in the chat that I'm working with already, so I'll say hello to the familiar faces. But if you do sign up, the way it tends to work is we would usually have a bit of an exploratory call and just find out about your project and what you have planned. And then it moves into sort of collaborative working sessions. So we would typically schedule in an hour, work together on various elements of the innovation, but challenge you beyond the session to perhaps go and look more deeply into certain topics we've covered, or go out and do some testing and validation. That's quite often the work we're doing. And as Karine said, it has a benefit that it really tests and strengthens the end idea. And also for many people, funding is the thing that they come for, but doing that testing and validation, it leads to more successful outcomes if you've got a more robust and commercially viable model that you're taking into various sort of funding applications.
I think I'm just going to pick up as well on what you were saying, Joe, about that process as well, about this isn't about us doing it for you either. And I think that's really important. We're enablers. You folks understand your business and you understand the markets you're serving and the places you operate. And we have got an appreciation, but again, if our experience, is pretty thin compared to the depth of experience you guys have got in your sector. So we're not here pretending that we're experts in that. In fact, that's a good example of how we work with Expo North, because it's Alex and the team there that have the detailed knowledge of the sectors. Just so we'll work with other organisations or other teams that have got that depth of knowledge. Now, we do have depth of knowledge, obviously, in many things as well. But it's also about setting homework, so it's about giving you a framework. It's about enabling you to do this stuff yourself. It's not about us doing it for you. So I think the other thing is all of the tools and things that we use are just very accessible and quite visual. So I think, again, they work well. We try and mix things up with people as well, and try and find the right tool to fit with the individual and the business as well. So it's not that you come in, it's not a sausage machine where you come in and you just go through this process. It is really variable depending on the opportunity.
Great, thank you. I mean, you touched on something there, Karine, that in fact you all have, that's quite important. I guess that we have an incredibly diverse creative and cultural sector across the Highlands and Islands, with enormous global provenance and all those things that are very exportable and tap into innovation very neatly. The other thing that comes up a lot for us, I guess, is that lots of the businesses are quite small in capacity and scale. So sometimes maybe approaching this whole concept of innovation seems like quite a daunting process. I mean, and a lot of the feedback we have from businesses that are going through this process with you guys or have been through it is just how kind of helpful that additional support is. I wonder if anyone has any comment on that, because I do think that very often, if I'm a small business, particularly at the minute where the pandemic has maybe restricted my operational model hugely, and I'm kind of trying to innovate my way out of that, but it's my headroom's quite low. It's a big effort for me to get through what's in front of me there. So being asked, I think sometimes when we come to approaching things like HIE's innovation or the relationship they may have with TrueNorth, Karine, it just seems like, blimey, this is another big time-consuming activity I'm going to have to undertake. I mean, I guess just exploring on the the kind of dynamics of that relationship a bit more. I mean, what's your thoughts or advice there for any businesses who are absolutely looking to innovate, are sure they have some solid innovation proposals, but time's a big issue, capacity is a big issue?
Again, a good question, and I think our attitude in that is we're led by the customer. We're led by whoever's contacting us to see, how much time have they got and what they're trying to achieve. In fact, I was actually just chasing up somebody yesterday, not chasing up, but I hadn't heard from them for about 6 weeks. I'd sent them some homework, so I was sort of checking in with them, thinking, have I scared them off? By setting this homework, thinking it didn't seem that difficult, but it's gone really quiet. And it's somebody that I'm taking in a process with a view to the innovation grant. He's just as you were describing, he's snowed under. That what he does, he's suddenly got lots of demand. So it's just come back to him and said, look, just get in touch when you're ready. I'll follow up with him. But I think the other bit related to that comes back to what Joanna talked about at the beginning, that actually the very often the challenge is I've got so many things in my head that I could do or I'd like to do, and particularly if we're creative folks as we are, although Jo and I aren't artists or makers, we are very creative, and I know what it's like. Sometimes you get this so much stuff in your head. So one of the things, again, we're trying to do is actually getting some of that out your head and on paper, and then helping you to navigate and decide, right, okay, I could do all of these things, but actually, what are the things I should be doing? What are the things with the resources that I've got is achievable and realistic at this particular point in time? And that could actually involve maybe scaling back maybe in an idea, and for us bouncing off and saying, well, okay, you've got this amazing multi-million-pound proposal to do something, but see if we did this thing and it cost 5,000 or something that was minimum. Actually, it could help you move on the journey as well. So I think that's another bit that people have found really useful, is just that decluttering in the headspace, and that might resonate with some folks on the call. Jo, again, if you get, I'm sure you've got examples of companies that you've done that with as well.
Sure. A lot of the feedback we get is just that having a sounding board is helpful, either to select ideas or to validate the ones that you've got and are running with. So just spending a bit of time going over that, being challenged on it, can be helpful. And going back to that original sort of, I won't test you on it, but we had that definition of innovation, and it was around creating value. And we had something there about, getting people to pay for it. But essentially what we are there to do is help you create and capture value. So time is a very scarce resource in a lot of the companies, most of the companies we work with. So we really, within that hour, we're determined that while we are thinking big, planning for the future, that the focus is always very strongly on creating and capturing value. So we do hope that it is a good use of people's time. And Alex, I do appreciate it's the hardest thing, but sometimes as a founder or as a creator, giving yourself that 1 hour to chat through something, giving yourself that headspace to explore can be really helpful. And that's certainly some of the feedback that we've heard.
And
absolutely.
I would say as well, from a high point of view, that we I hope that we kind of save people time as well, because we're aware of different funding streams and different types of support. So if we know what you're doing, we can help, put you in the right direction. And when it comes to looking at projects that you're looking for funding for, if you give us an outline of what the project is, we can kind of tell you exactly what we would need, if this is to be a funding application. We've got quite clear criteria as to what we need before we can do an assessment. So we're quite happy to take in a sort of a draft application, if you like, a project proposal, and have a look at it and say, yes, this looks as if it could be a successful application, but we would need X, Y, and Z as well. You know, just to save you kind of doing all that work just to find out that it's not eligible for some reason. So hopefully that helps save you all a bit of time.
Thanks so much. I mean, one thing I would say in terms of specific innovation ideas that we find a lot through Expo North at the minute is, I mean, and Expo North will be included in this. We produced the event as a digital format last year, and we will be again this year. And with, I guess, a diversity of events around the Highlands and Islands, many of which have real global profile. But I guess a lot of them have a common issue in as much as the physical destination is in, you know, once we move back into place, you know, it is already at capacity. There's minimal room to move there. So lots of them are looking to say, well, you know, what might additional remote offerings of this event look like? How experiential can I make them? What type of technology should I use? How are they monetized? I mean, I think that's a big thing that we're seeing across our network. Is there anything, you know, and are you guys seeing that a lot in the applications that are coming through? Is that something that the innovation strand's responding to?
Yeah, I think it's understanding. I think that the example you said there, you know, is interesting. That's, you know, the types of problems that we've got. Businesses actually been too successful, not too successful, but that they have got to that point, but they want to keep growing. So what else, you know, could they be doing? So we are seeing lots of places doing that, and I think that, you know, there's no doubt that, as I said at the start, you know, digital is an important part of the how do we do what we do. And we're definitely getting people thinking differently, and also not just about falling into the, okay, well, everybody else is doing this, so I better do it too. You should only be doing that if it's actually going to help you move forward and create some value. But which is another interesting bit about innovation, is that copying and seeing. Also looking outside your sector and saying, well, how are people using technology or doing things differently? How could I apply that in where I am? I was just watching Click on BBC the other day. It's just looking for these seeds of ideas and things to get you thinking differently. So, yeah. I think there's I just see, you know, adversity breeds invention, and certainly, you know, I think we've seen the adversity situation in the last year creating a lot of innovation. You know, just having to do things differently, Alex. But also the fact that, you know, I've been talking to folks. There's a lot of things that they've been forced to do. That actually people are going to carry on forward. So actually, you just think about things like these webinars. You know, that's stuff that we'll keep doing that, because actually it's much easier to reach an audience. It's more cost effective. You have to book meeting rooms and things. Particularly in the high region, you know, people are having to travel so far very often. So there'll be some elements of that we'll keep, but then we need ways that what was good about the face-to-face stuff, how do we try and capture that? What could we be doing differently to try and get that happening? Because this is quite sterile, and it's a wee bit difficult to get that interaction that we would normally do. So I think we're getting used to these things, and it's certainly I think the pandemic's accelerated our use of technology. But again, I suppose coming back to the question, what's great is we're just seeing lots of people, you know, looking to do different things differently. And I think actually I've just another bit, you know, Fiona had mentioned about introducing to other support. One of the other things that I think, you know, we're really good at, the three of us providing that IIB support, all come from very, you know, different backgrounds, loads of experiences, and sometimes it's about, oh, I think you should go and talk to so-and-so. I was chatting to somebody about this and just seeing where actually opportunities to collaborate. And when you were talking about resources, actually, just on that point is, oh, I'm just me. That actually maybe finding people that we could collaborate with as well could take away some of that issue about the human resource, the financial resource as well. And actually by doing that, get a better solution for the client. So again, just by thinking a bit wider, and I think the stuff with Expo North is great for that, because you provide lots of opportunities for people to be finding out about new stuff and what other people are doing.
Thanks so much. And please, anyone, if you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat. We're coming into the last kind of 5-10 minutes. It would be great to hear your thoughts and put anything to the guys here. I guess Fiona, I think one of the things I think you mentioned there that I guess it comes up for us sometimes, and I know we've had experience of this, but is there any types of business that wouldn't be able to engage with the innovation program, Fiona? I'm thinking about if I break this down into academia or other institutions, or I mean, is there any guidance around that or any kind of parameters there? Sorry, you're muted again, Fiona.
Oh, you need to unmute.
Sorry, I'm really not very good at this, am I? Yeah, I mean, we deal with, SMEs, basically, those are our clients, but they can also be, they can be not-for-profit companies as well. I mean, academia, there is funding available through Interface for businesses who want to engage with academic partners. And Interface are an organisation who can help source an academic partner to do a specific piece of research or work for you. And you can claim an innovation voucher of up to £5,000, which is paid directly to the academic. So that's a possibility if you're doing a project which is better done through academia. But if you had to go further afield for academic support, then yes, that could be part of a small innovation grant project. But yes, I mean, we work with all types of businesses, really. Did you have something specific, Alex, that you were thinking of there?
No, I was just wanting to lay a bit of housekeeping in case there's anyone on the line, in case there was any types of business that maybe couldn't or weren't able to engage with the innovation program for any reason.
Yeah. I mean, normally account managed businesses would engage through their account manager, and obviously it's for Highlands and Islands based businesses. I mean, Scottish Enterprise have their own support mechanisms for businesses on their patch, if you like.
But it's worth noting that this, Fiona, I guess one of the really valuable things here is that this is for any type of business in the Highlands and Islands. You don't have to be account managed. You don't have to have an existing relationship with High in order to have a relationship with the innovation team. No,
not at all. I mean, Innovate Your Business is really a resource for non-account managed businesses that haven't got that relationship with HIE. This is how we can offer them support with innovation. Account managed businesses tend to work with their own account manager and directly with the innovation team rather than through Innovate Your Business. Although there have been, there are examples of Innovate Your Business working with an account managed business on a specific project, if that's the best thing for them.
Perfect. And we're kind of coming towards the end. We've kind of run out of time a little, but I just want to say that quickly before we leave. This introductory session is going to form part of a suite of content, 3 or 4 sessions that we hope to announce in the next couple of weeks. That will include many of the people here today, but we'll be kind of moving over some ground. We'll be kind of drilling down into specific areas of the innovation process and getting hopefully slightly more technical with it. So it would be great for you guys to stick with us through that as well. Worth mentioning too that the Expo North 2021's open for registration now. Innovation is a big theme that's running through the whole of the conference. Again, we'll be fully online this year, and we've got some great content already announced and much more coming. So I just want to, we'll post some links on Expo North about the HI's innovation program, maybe some thoughts and takeaways from today's conversation as well. And we thank you for joining us. And I just wanted to ask the three of you guys, any closing thoughts before we move on? Karine, we'll come to you first.
So I was just typing in to punch the link again. It's just that you've got nothing to lose apart from a little bit of your time. So you know, users were there. So use that sounding board opportunity, and you know, we really look forward to working with you. But yep, Jo.
Likewise, again, I've been reading in the chat all of the wonderful things you're working on, and I appreciate we didn't get a chance to explore them today. But if you do have an idea or project underway, please connect with us. We can get started. But as Alex said, we'll be exploring some more innovation concepts and travelling down the path a bit further in the future webinars as well. So it would be lovely to see you there.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say it really is very easy to get in touch with Innovate Your Business with an online inquiry form, which is really, really simple. Really, it's very easy. And the other thing that I would maybe mention is a little plug for our Zero Waste Scotland webinar on the 27th of April, because a lot of innovation projects actually are around waste minimisation and low carbon projects and things. So that one could be relevant to people who are listening today.
Fantastic, thanks so much, expertly done. We're just coming to the end of time, so thanks Karine, Joanne, Fiona, thanks so much for your time. Thanks everyone for joining us today and giving us your attention, and please do keep an eye on our site where we'll be announcing the wider package of innovation workshops, and we hope to see you all on there, and please do let us know if there's anything else we can do around this. And guys, thanks so much for joining us, and Callum, thanks so much for your technical expertise in the background there. Very well done, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.